Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show where we blend the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, we have part two or part 1B, however we may call it. I don't know. But we've got Kris Koenig with us again from Golden Beaver Distillery. If you saw part one, listen to part one. We had a great time talking with Kris about Pacific Flyway Bourbon and his Chico Creek Rye. And we started our conversation on the California Sound. We covered a lot of ground on the Bakersfield Sound, Buck Owens, Glenn Campbell, a lot of great stuff there. Talked about the genesis of that with the Okies moving to California. We talked about Hee Haw. So if you've never seen the TV show Hee Haw, you need to go back and watch part one of this, and then find a rerun of Hee Haw on YouTube or something, and then that'll give you some context. But before we get into part two or part 1B, as the case may be, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiasts. That's you. If you didn't know, that's you. We have shows like Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They have shows with distillers from across the country and around the world where they talk about anything, everything from A to Z, soup to nuts in terms of distillation. Alan also has a couple of shows called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, where he will take your questions on any topic from a distillation perspective, and he'll post video responses to that so everybody can learn from what you've asked. He also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. That steps into the paranormal, the spiritual, the unique, the odd, the unusual. It covers a lot of ground. I was actually fortunate enough to be on an episode with Alan. He talked with me about some things from a spiritual perspective. So, check that out. That was a lot of fun. My Whiskey Den with Pat and Mike and Mitch. Mike is with us again this week on Bourbon Turntable. But My Whiskey Den every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. My Whiskey Den, where craft whiskey is king. You don't want to miss it. David Levine and My Whiskey and My Wedding Ring. He does a great job, man. His podcasts are off the charts good, professional, solid stuff, talking with distillers. He has a blog where he does excellent reviews. If you're not sure, do I want to buy this or do I not? Go to David's website, search for whatever it is you're wanting to buy. If he's got a review on it and it's positive, just buy it and be done with it. You can trust this guy. He knows his stuff. As for our show, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate that. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, follow us there too. We really would thank you for doing so. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. We don't really care. Just tell somebody. We do appreciate it. So, without further ado, let's get back into our conversation with Kris and Mike about the California Sound and Golden Beaver Pacific Flyway Bourbon. Some other artists that came out of that Bakersfield Sound, the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Dude, I mean,
They're
it's
very
amazing.
sharp dressed guys. Look at this. This is just
They
fantastic.
were. Well, I'm trying to think of the guy that's in Nashville that does all those outfits, but I mean, it's a big deal to do a setting with this guy and get
Yeah.
your outfits made, and they embraced it. Um, but if you listen to the first albums of the Burrito Brothers, people may not even know who they are.
Mhm.
You've heard every song,
Right. 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 The
you know.
first album was what, Gilded Palace of Sin. I
Yep.
think. Came out in the late '60s, and that was very country. I
Yes.
thought that was very country. And as the subsequent albums came out, they were a little. They started to lean a little bit more towards rock and roll, but it was still, you could tell that that country root was still there.
Yeah, that early Southern rock, you know,
Hmm.
again, Bakersfield Sound kind of mixed in, kind of make that transition. But I think, they opened the door for obviously the Eagles, opened the door for
Hmm.
Allman Brothers, that Southern rock sound. I mean, Allman Brothers created Southern rock. I'm not saying they didn't, but in Leonard Skinner, but it was that they both came up at the same time, and they
Hmm.
both had their take on how to blend this this rock, this British invasion with country,
Hmm.
which is really fun if you think about what happened with the Beatles. They were trying to capture the sounds of the South in their music. So
Right.
it's really kind of funny. They're both all going to the same direction, trying to trying to redefine that sound.
Yeah.
And but they were great, man. And I
Yeah.
and I love the Burrito Brothers.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun. Mike, have you listened to much of their stuff?
Yeah, I have. I mean, there all that stuff from that whole area. It is. I mean, you can tell there's. It seems to be kind of theme of like, I don't know, free. I don't want to say free love, but it's just kind of like I'm free to do what I want to do and create. And some
Hmm.
of it turned into these jam bands, great jam bands, and then
Hmm.
other ones
Right.
turned into just, well, why not do this?
Yeah.
there's no reason not to make any. But yeah, no, that whole area is one of my favorite areas of that birth a lot of musicians and bands.
Yeah. And another band that we kind of bounced back and forth with in emails while we were talking about this show was the Birds.
Yep.
Uh, that they you could tell what influenced them, but then you could tell who they influenced from that.
Mm-hmm.
They were very much an intersectional band as far as they collected a lot of influence from a lot of different places. Dylan on their folk side of things, for example. But then with what came out of that, they had very long reach with who they influenced as artists.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about a very different uh, breed of uh, California music, and that's the Beach Boys.
Yep.
Uh,
Well,
okay,
let's talk about harmonies, right?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
to me,
and
that's the key thing
Yeah.
yep.
that I take away from the Beach Boys is those guys knew how to harmonize. They took it to a next level. That was
And
incredible in that. Yeah.
Yes.
and who spanked their monkey? The Eagles, right? So
Yeah.
you go from this beach sound,
Yeah.
and then you this obviously very heavy influence, Bakersfield Sound, the bird sound, everything we've
Hmm.
been talking about gets rolled up. Linda Ronstadt also rolled up into this sound that became the Eagles,
Hmm.
and the harmonies was the most important thing, which lends it. That goes back to the Beach Boys.
Hmm. The, as far as that genre, the beach music, whether it's the Beach Boys or Jan and Dean or whatever, um, as a Californian, is that a style of music that you're drawn to, or is that just kind of, well, that happened and now it's not?
No, I grew up on it. Through the '60s. It was on the radio. My brothers and sisters were listening to it. I mean, it was just, it was pop music of the day, right? But if you think about when it started to trail off, who took their place? The harmonies of the Eagles, the
Hmm.
harmonies of the Allman Brothers. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young,
Yeah.
CCR. You know, it all comes along in that they pick up that ball that
Hmm.
the Beach Boys had created and carry it through in this new genre of music, which really wasn't a genre. I mean, people call, you know, uh, the Eagles rock. I'm not sure it's rock. I
Right.
think it's the Eagles. I mean, it's its own because it's just as much country, and you can see Henley's gone
Mhm.
on to do incredible country albums that
Hmm.
I don't even know if you call what he's doing now country. It's just Americana,
Right.
and it kind of all goes in there. And I think one end of Americana, you got the Beach Boys. On the other end, you have Eagles and Henley and Leonard and Almond Brothers. I mean, it's just it's just America,
Yeah.
and you know, some great stuff. And who's our oh God, I can't believe I just dropped his name. Cody Jinks right
Yeah.
now. You look at that. Is that is that country? Well, if you listen to his lyrics, it sure isn't. I mean, it seems to cross. It's a whole different thing because he takes on subjects that maybe they do lend themselves to country, but I think they lend themselves to the Beatles as well. I mean, it's just very complex, and I think why we get drawn in, at least I get drawn into great artists, is that they
Hmm.
are complex and they're both country and rock and
Yep.
pop. So
Yeah. And Cody Jinks does a lot of different things. He's got the whole outlaw country thing, but I think he's got um, a band that's more of a metal band that
right,
he plays with too. So yeah, yeah, uh, it's it's helpful for purposes of discussion sometimes to put things in a category, um, but it's like whiskey. Okay, when you say whiskey, a lot of people have very preconceived ideas about what that is,
yep,
um, and it doesn't fit into a box very neatly most of the time. Um,
yep,
um, let's switch back to whiskey now that we're talking about it, and let's go to this barrel number 58, which is remarkably different than barrel 59.
yep.
And but we're dealing with same mash bill,
Same
same.
mash bills, same fermentation, same week, same barrels. So these are all ISC uh, distiller select barrels that are char 3, medium toast, and but this was a topped off barrel, and it is absolutely a stone fruit butterscotch bomb. I mean,
Yep.
I don't mean to step on your tasting notes, but that's the way I perceive it.
Yep. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Butterscotch bomb's kind of an understatement, especially on the nose. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very very apparent, and on the nose, I can, and I think I posted this at some point. I can smell this for dessert because
Yes.
it just and it's like if you give me the like your bottle of Honey Run and you had this, I would have assumed Honey Run is going to smell and taste sweeter, but just by the name of it alone. But this, you're smelling it, it's like I'm about to get diabetes. It's what
Yeah.
it's it is so sweet and rich on the nose, but yeah, just heavy butterscotch. And my note that I wrote on there is like a warmed Werther candy,
Yep.
and then I had stone fruits on there also.
Yep.
No, that's great.
Yeah, I kind of had it as a butterscotch pudding because it kind of has that richness,
Mm.
that creaminess to it. Yeah, it's amazing that these two are the are the same anything
Right.
because
Right.
they're so very different. But
Yeah.
it's
Well,
the mash bill's the same, fermentation is the same, aging is essentially the same. I mean, there's not that much different in the age of these two, is there?
Yeah, it's just one was a slightly short filled barrel.
Yeah.
Um, they're like kid children. It's like you can have the same genetics, two children, totally different, and that's kind of the way I look at this. They're both exceptional whiskeys, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm biased, of course, but um, I think they're both great. But 58 is definitely um, more floral. It's more dynamic. I would say 59 is more of a traditional, straight ahead bourbon, more of what you expect from a
Hmm.
bourbon.
Yeah.
Where when you get a hold of 58, you're like, holy crap! But where did this come from? I
Yeah.
mean, this is very floral, and I you know I I'm not sure if I've ever had one that's as floral as this in another brand or another whiskey. You
I've
guys
had
probably tasted more than I have.
I've had whiskeys that are more floral, but not that are good. It's like that. I've had some very floral whiskeys that are like, this is very floral, but it smells kind of like a funeral home. It's like it's just straight up
Embalming fluid.
Yeah.
lilies, but yeah, embalming fluid probably works too. But this it's got floralness to it, but it's really really good. And I think that butterscotch pudding note is just solid all the way through it. It's got a little funk to it. It's very interesting. Um, very interesting whiskey, and I've done a little blend of 59 and 58 that we may have to try talk about
Uh
in a little bit. So
Yep. I did that too.
yeah, I knew you would.
oh.
I knew you
There
would.
you go.
You're famous for that. So let's talk about CCR for a second. Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Mm.
This band kind of was a hit it and quit it band. I mean, they started out in I think '68 and did an album. I think it was mostly covers. Their self-titled album, and then did uh, Bayou Country, and how a band out of California became the swamp music sound. I don't know, but they did it.
Well, I'll tell you why.
Okay, good.
Because what people don't realize that one of the biggest delta regions in the country is right here, the Sacramento Delta, and we are swamp. It's just not cypress trees and
Uh-huh.
and moss. I mean, we have endless channels and canals, and you want to go catfishing. We got everything but the crocodiles and the alligators. But it just mixed. I mean, and the song "Lost" and "Stuck in Lodi" again
Yeah.
is a town that's right off the Delta. I mean, it's right there, and so it wasn't a far leap for these musicians to embrace again the sounds of Mississippi and
Mm,
Louisiana, and as far as a genre. And again, what was the Beatles were doing it, Stones were doing it. That's you know that's what the peer group was doing. They were all trying to go down and still Muddy Waters and BB King, and they were
mm,
trying to get that blues sound
yep.
mixed in with their music,
Yep.
and then of course put what we would call the free love sound on top of that.
Yeah.
They kind of blend that in. So
Yeah. There's a lot going on with CCR. It's kind of like this Barrel 58. There's a lot going on in this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you said like hit it and quit it. They hit it really hard for a few years.
yeah, 68 to 72, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, but you
Yeah.
forgot all the infomercials selling their albums all
Yeah.
into the
Wow.
80s. It's like
Yes.
you can
But
get them
that
all.
Yeah.
but
Not
that
only
also
that, you're going to get this extra uncut,
Yes.
unrecorded
Yeah.
version of, whatever.
but they should have knowing what a lot of people know now, they should have said, and by the way, none of the band members are going to get any of this because
Any
we
of this money.
screwed them out
Yeah,
of it years ago.
exactly. Exactly.
No, I was I really got into CCR in college, and just I loved some of their covers. Susie Q and Heard It Through the Grapevine. They're just spectacular songs. Really, really long. So it's kind of like some of the early jam band
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But man, they were good. Man, they were good. A favorite CCR song, Mike? You got one?
Oh man. I mean, I like Heard It Through the Grapevine because he says "hoid it through the
Oh, I
grapevine."
eat it.
Right.
Yes.
But nah, I like Down on the Corner a lot. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of them, like you mentioned, yeah, Lodi and Traveling Band and all. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much CCR music that's just it's just so good. But I will say, Fortunate Son.
Yes.
I don't like it as much because it's like for the while in the 80s and 90s. Oh, we're making a Vietnam movie. We're
Yes.
gonna put
Yeah.
Fortunate Son in.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
their music is appears in a lot of movies. Anything that's like a werewolf movie, you've got to have Bad Moon Rising on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll hear that a lot. We here in Kentucky, we'll have the eclipse visible. As we're recording this, it'll be visible tomorrow. So I'm sure that song will get worn out as well. So,
Yep. Yep.
the Grateful Dead, obviously a hugely popular band. In their entire career, they had one top 40 single. And that was Touch of Grey, which was probably off one of their last, or maybe even their last studio album. I don't know.
Right.
Kris, what are your thoughts on the Grateful Dead? Are you a Deadhead?
Yeah, the Dead. Yeah, I mean, you don't grow up and go to school from junior high onward and not be influenced by the Dead. I mean,
Yeah.
the Dead was it's a cultural thing here on the West Coast. That's probably why it never made didn't go more pop chart.
Mhm.
But I think the other reason is that what is it? How do you classify the music of the Dead? I
Mhm.
mean, is it country? Is it rock? Is it
Right.
smooth jazz? You could go
Yeah.
through it honestly. No, I'm serious,
It,
right?
it, it no, it is. It's all of it. It's
Right.
bluegrass. It's jazz.
You know,
It's blues. It's yeah.
Yeah.
it was this very talented artist seeking every possible genre of music to blend together, and then throw a joint in on it, and sit back and watch it. That's the Dead, and
Yeah.
whether it be LSD, marijuana, mushrooms, or whiskey,
Yeah.
it was all part of that collective listening to the Dead music. And
Yeah.
they're still, I don't you probably look up the statistics faster than I can there, but they're probably the highest producing band in music through the 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
as far as dollars that they earned, probably exceed their LP numbers, of course.
Yeah.
But because they were selling out stadiums.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They
These
were
people
a culture.
that they were a machine that people would just follow them. I'd love to have customers like this, by the way, and I hope we can get a few here. That every release that we make, you would follow us like you're
Mhm.
going to the next Dead concert, because they
Right.
would spend bank to go to this concert, and then they get in their car and follow on them to the next concert
Mhm.
and spend bank again.
Right.
They were the ultimate merchandisers of rock music,
Yep.
out there.
Well, you could start. I mean, with the Grateful Dead obviously had the Deadheads. I don't know. Would you be like the Beaver Lickers, or would that be your fan base?
Well, my wife would say no to the Beaver Lickers, but I don't know. It's kind of works,
Well,
you know.
Yeah.
we'll see what we can start just kind of organically
Yeah.
in that. But yeah. I saw a statistic over 2,300 live shows with the Grateful Dead as really the Grateful Dead, not Dead and Company.
Yep.
and almost 90% of those were recorded.
Yeah.
So you know, just all these. Yeah, there are lots of legit live recording releases out there, but there's a bunch of bootleg stuff too.
Yeah.
And they were very serious about their sound system. They hated the PAs in any of the arenas and stadiums that they played in, so they created. They hired somebody to design their own speaker system, sound system. They took with them place to place.
They were the craft distillers of rock.
Yeah,
Let's just call it that,
Yeah.
because they took the time to make sure that the experience was the best it could possibly be.
yeah,
Yeah.
The-
Maybe
And
say
not-
pot distillers.
Yeah.
They would be definitely no pun intended, but definitely they would
They're
have
pot stills.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
the guy
Absolutely.
that was their sound guy was one of the most prolific sellers of LSD. Ended up going to jail. So that didn't work out real well, but
Right.
he did create that sound system, which when they stopped touring, that sound system was handed off to Dave Matthews Band.
Right.
So there's your useless trivia point
No,
of
it's
the
good
day.
trivia.
Yeah.
Almost like clearing out the honey pot in the Ohio River, but I think that's a long story about Dave Matthews, right? They cleaned out their bus.
in
It was
Chicago,
Cincinnati
yeah,
River,
it was in
wasn't it?
Chicago. No, it was in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Well,
They
upstream, but but a good spot.
yeah. You're gonna empty your sewage system from your tour bus anywhere. Yeah, you might as well do it in Chicago.
Yeah.
from a bridge.
From a
From a
bridge,
bridge.
yes. Okay, we've mentioned the next person I want to talk about, and I'll be honest, as I was going through and listening to this, I really kind of got fixated here, and that is with Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nobody better, man.
golly
Nobody better.
day. Oh my gosh, she is so good.
No,
And
her work, culminated in the last 15 years of her work.
mhm.
I mean, the songs of my father was probably the best album. If if you appreciate vocals and you appreciate the work that she did, I mean, she didn't touch anything that wasn't great, but that album, I think that was one of her last albums before she was overtaken by her condition.
Yeah, Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
She had a pretty good backup band when she was starting out too.
Oh yeah, can't beat that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing, because she was on all the time, but there's one thing I never ever paid attention to, because I always listened to her voice. She was singing with this person, singing with that person, But as I've gotten older, I'm like, wow, Linda Ronstadt.
Oh yeah.
But in my formative years, it completely escaped me. But as an adult, it's like, wow, I missed the boat on that one. Not to sound like a pig or anything, but dear God, she had a total package.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
you're obviously quite a bit younger than me, my son.
Probably not that much.
'Cause
I'm 53, so
yeah. Well, that 10 years made a big difference. So,
yeah, the Sally Field of singing.
yeah, no, she's and we were even, I was even, probably too young. My brothers are probably more appreciative of it, but
yeah.
phenomenal singer, phenomenal songwriter, and she was right there. We had, she had her influence. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It just skipped my mind. Parsons, right? Graham
Parsons, yeah.
Yep.
Graham Parsons. He influenced her. She was involved, obviously, with the Dead and the sounds coming out of there. Influenced, obviously, by Buck Owens and what they were doing. And, of course, the Wrecking Crew out of the studio, which included Glenn Campbell and all those great musicians there.
Yeah.
I mean, and these are the people she hung out with on Friday night. And, they went to, the Palomino Club and sat there and listened to everybody coming through there. So there was definitely heavy country influence, obviously, but also, Don Henley and Glenn
Jackson
Fry and all
Brown.
those guys coming. Jackson, absolutely
Mhm.
Jackson Brown.
Yep.
Yeah,
Who
right.
had a huge influence on him, on her coming through, and special time in L.A. Man, that's all you can
Yeah,
say.
and
Yeah.
she was to the Eagles what Stevie Nicks was to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yes.
There was a connection there. If there was a female member of either of those bands, it was Linda Ronstadt to the Eagles, and it was Stevie Nicks to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I just love her voice, man. You're No Good. I could just listen to that on repeat because it starts out just so sultry and smoky and
Yep.
then just she starts hitting these high notes that are just stratospheric, and I'm like, this is incredible. And yeah, kind of.
No, absolutely.
Oh,
Probably the
goodness.
most underrated female vocalist in history.
Yeah, because she
I
could
don't
sing.
think
She could sing anything. She could
any
do
genre.
country. She could do rock. She could do opera if she wanted to. I'm sure.
Well, she
'Cause
did
her
Tony
voice was
Bennett.
that good.
Her and Tony Bennett did that turned out to be a whole set of female vocalists with him.
Right.
But she was
Right.
the first with him, and moved on through and then crossed over with the traditional Mexican American sound and everything
Mhm.
else that came along. And, you know,
Yeah.
she's phenomenal artist.
Yeah. She is phenomenal. Yep. And just a couple months ago, it was announced that they're going to do a movie on her life,
Oh, great.
and the actress who will play Linda Ronstadt, Selena Gomez, which I can see from an appearance standpoint. Yeah, that works. I hope this is really well done because she's very deserving of it. Just a phenomenal voice and an incredible artist. So all right, before we get into all right, let's talk about the Eagles, and we'll kind of go with the Eagles through the last of their real albums. We won't get into that, whatever that last thing that they put out a few years ago, but because at that point it wasn't really the Eagles anymore.
The money grab album.
Yes, well, we could Money Grab. This is the band that does that. But 72, they came out with their self-titled album Eagles. It's not the Eagles, it's just Eagles. And apparently the legend is that Steve Martin suggested the name the Eagles, and I think Don Henley said no, it's just Eagles. So kind of like the Facebook became Facebook, the Eagles became
mean
Eagles.
Ohio State will go back to being Ohio State?
Never.
Oh God, I hate that. I hate that so much.
We included them in a documentary, and I sat there with their PR person for 10 minutes. It has to be the Ohio State when you do the VO. I'm like, what's your problem? Ohio State.
Yeah.
Anyway,
a close friend graduated from there, and I love every single time dropping the off when I say it, and he corrects me constantly, and I just go, I just
Ohio
do it all
State.
the time.
Yeah, Ohio
just
State.
just to irritate him.
Yeah, that tells you everything you need to know about people that went to Ohio State University.
Yeah.
Everything you need to know.
Okay, stop. You're stepping on my customer's toes. No toe stomping here.
All right. So one thing about Eagles music, the references in Seinfeld. If I don't know if you watch Seinfeld or not, but there was the one episode where Elaine had a new boyfriend, and every time Desperado came on the radio, he was stop. And you couldn't talk. You just had to listen to Desperado. And she said, well, maybe that could be our song. No, this is my song. So she was trying to come up with what could be their song. And she was talking with Jerry about it, and she said, what about Witchy Woman? He goes, Witchy Woman? What is that? Ooh, ooh, witchy woman. And he goes, oh, witchy woman. So a couple of Eagles songs in your Seinfeld, history there. But Eagles were fantastic. And Kris, like you alluded to, what genre did they really fit in? Because at least through at least until Hotel California came out, it was a little bit of country, a little bit of folk, and it was more that than it was rock and roll.
Well, I'll even throw you, not to totally get away from the Eagles, I'll throw you Elton John was country. His first album was more country than it was rock.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and if we're really going to go down that path, let's talk about Fleetwood Mac and all these, people that say, "Oh, I love Fleetwood Mac." Oh, okay. Well,
that's how it all.
You know who Peter Green is?
Yeah, I don't have a clue. 68 to 72 influence of L.A. and what was going on in the music scene down there. They embraced all that. So, and to be honest, there's only one Fleetwood Mac, and that was the first album. But I won't go there because my wife is in the room somewhere here. Gotta look around.
All right. Well, we'll do Fleetwood Mac a different time because it's not
before they brought on Stevie Nicks.
Yes. But a different topic for a different day. Because we could really go down that rabbit hole, but we won't. Mike, you have a favorite Eagles album?
Honestly, I'm going to say Greatest Hits because I like the Eagles. I don't know why. I've always had an issue with Don Henley, and I don't know why. I don't know why. There's just something about him, but and I didn't, growing up, never appreciated Joe Walsh until I got older.
Yeah.
But then it really seems like, well, especially with Joe Walsh, the Eagles seem to be a side project of Joe Walsh, as Joe Walsh doing his own thing and the other way around. At least it seems to be. But the Greatest Hits was good. That was honestly the first album of the Eagles that I bought.
Yeah.
It's great. Like Glenn Frey, I liked Glenn Frey's acting and the little bits that he did. Even the dumb movie Let's Get Harry, that was a favorite of mine.
Right.
But now I don't know what it is about Don Henley. There's just something about him. It holds me back on there. But I do have good fond memories of going to Winslow, Arizona, and taking a picture with my kids and stuff like that, and all those good old kooky things.
No, it's good solid pop music, man. When they all spun off it and they came back together because who's one of the singers? The guy's name's skipping mine.
Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Joe Walsh,
Meisner.
Yeah.
Meisner. I need some cash. Can we get back together?
Yep.
Because everybody else had solo careers, right?
Right.
And it's just like I need cash. So let's come back together and get the band going. But very talented guys. I mean, but definitely, going back to the premise of the show, heavily influenced by that blend of Beach Boys and country, and creating this new kind of, bringing in the vocals, bringing in the electric guitar, bringing in very traditional storylines that are very country like. When you listen to the lyrics, it is country music. I mean, it's not obviously modern music. It's not, hip hop. I mean, listen to hip hop, very hip hop. I mean, hip hop when you hear it because it's not country.
Right.
And that's,
And Bernie Leadon, who was guitarist for the Eagles, came out of the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Right.
And he left after one of these nights, and you can really tell a difference in the music in those first 4 albums. Had a much more country influence, and then he left. Joe Walsh came in, and Hotel California was very much towards a more of a rock end of the
Right.
spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, cocaine was introduced at this point in their lives, and so there the music changed. I mean,
yes.
did I say that? Did I say that on my?
Well,
So Stevie Nicks
I'm
joined
just
the
saying
band.
they went from Mexican dirtweed to
right.
Peruvian. I mean, it just the music
yes.
changed in the mid '70s for everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what band you pick, you can all point to it. You're talking about Fleetwood.
Yep.
We go very lyrical, word based to, we're going to do drums now,
Right.
and we're gonna do a three minute drum solo before the song starts in Tusk. I mean
Right.
Well,
that
they had to
just showed
sober
you.
up a little bit or stop fighting. One of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, but incredibly talented group of guys. What it is today is kind of a shadow of it, of course. I
Yep.
mean, this is
Well, people get old, man.
50 years ago, and yeah,
Go easy on that 50, will you please?
I'm I'm I'm
I'm
well
teasing
past
you there.
that.
Just
Well past
yeah,
that.
yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
I will have to say in recent years though I've seen thanks to YouTube, but seeing now why is his name escaping me? Vince Gill, seeing Vince Gill
Yep.
play with them.
Yep.
That's a good fit.
Well, here's a little tidbit. I don't know if you know this in your rock history knowledge. Vince Gill was actually interviewed to be the lead guitarist for, just Money for Nothing and Chicks for Free.
Oh,
Quick,
Dire
Dire
Straits.
Straits.
Dire Straits. He was actually interviewed for that position, and they gave it to Mark Knopfler. Now that's how good of a guitarist he is. I mean, if you put them
Yeah.
side by side, both exceptional guitarists, but Vince Gill was offered the job before it was given to Knopfler.
Hmm.
So little trivia
Yep.
there.
That
That
is.
everybody looks at Vince Gill as being this, very slick country player,
No,
but
he's a really
He's an
good
he's
guitar
an
incredible
player.
guitarist.
exceptional guitarist.
Yeah.
And I think he's been on a couple of the Crossroad specials, has he
Mhm.
not?
I think
He's
Yeah.
so.
played on those. All you have to do is look at Crossroads. That's the that becomes the litmus test for a guitarist in the world of music. I mean, if you get invited to Crossroads, you're a guitarist,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of that. So
Yeah. Well, the conversation will kind of start winding it down, but the thing that I think we can take away from this is there's a lot of music that traces its roots back to that 1950s Bakersfield sound and things and music that is still relevant today, that people listen to on a regular basis today, can be traced back to what guys like Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and Glenn Campbell and Flying Burrito Brothers were doing uh, 70 years ago.
yeah, well, look at Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah.
I mean, him and
Mhm.
Beck doing a couple albums together. I mean, you got, everyone looks at Dwight and go, well, he's all nasally. Dwight kind of, straddles all
Mhm.
that oaky Kentucky sound. He kind of blends it together with rock, and if you haven't seen a Dwight Yoakam concert, I gotta tell you, you need to go see him.
Yeah.
Spend the money because it's a show, and to the point that he rips off Elvis and half of his act. It's all, he's got this latitude that he can get away with it because he's
Right.
Dwight Yoakam.
He's
But
Dwight Yoakam.
great performance, great music, great lyrics,
Yep.
and he himself. You could do a show on Dwight Yoakam,
Yep.
um,
Well,
on his ability to write and his songs. I mean, Thousand Miles Away, he wrote in 20 minutes
yeah.
for a film you know, which I'm still blown away that somebody could write a song that's that good in that quick a time.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty amazing. So
Well, when we started this show, we talked about this. This was going to be part one, and in part two, we'll kind of take up where we left off.
I got to make more whiskey then, man.
Well,
God, you're
get
putting the
on
pressure
it.
on me, man.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
putting the pressure on you. But we'll take up where we left off. We kind of left off
The
with
next single barrel we release. So we'll
all
get
right.
it right.
We
So.
left off with the last real Eagles album, which would have been The Long Run, which, you know, Mike was telling us, I can't tell you why I don't like Don Henley, but so that's kind of where we'll leave off there. But we'll pick up with.
I think the girls, all the girls looking the same with those bass guitars, scared him. I think he was going through that period of time in his life that was a very threatening thing, seeing these women on the Don Henley video.
No, I might know what it is, but I don't care if I offend or not. But I really hate the Boys of Summer song, and that might have something to do with it too. And mostly it was one of those way overplayed when it, you know, at least when I grew up. So
yeah,
again, I'm open to rediscovering things, but
it was almost a Tom Petty song. Mike Campbell wrote it.
Would have been better.
Well, but anyway, we'll take up there. We'll talk about Van Halen's career. The first album Van Halen release came out in '78, so we'll kind of take up there. We'll do some Guns N' Roses. We'll talk Dwight Yoakam, of course. Maybe some Red Hot Chili Peppers, some Huey Lewis and the News.
Perfect. Very
so
good.
That's kind of setting the tone for part two of this discussion on California music. So once Kris gets busy releasing some more whiskey, we'll go ahead and we'll plan on having part two of this. But I can't end this without another photo of Linda Ronstadt. Yeah. So Mike, you did your blend. What do you think of your blend?
I like to blend, and it's on the nose. It's really truly the best of both barrels on the nose, but it does on the palate. The wood tannins come through more on the blend for me.
Yep.
And I did a pretty even between the two of them. Still, again, really good.
Yep. But I like them. I like them individually better than the blend because there's so much good about each on their own. You don't want to diminish that by putting them together. But still good. If you'd handed me this and said, "Hey, here, try this," I would say, "Yeah, this is fantastic."
Yeah.
But I'll like what's going on with these two, Kris. And so,
thank you.
Whatever I don't know, barrel 60 is.
Well, I think what we need to do is you need to get on a plane, and you need to come out here about August, and we'll pull that barrel.
Well, maybe we'll do that.
I mean, and you can pick from the. So we have two. We got 6 more barrels. You get to pick one and tell us which one you want out of that on that single barrel, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's not a bad plan, actually. And we can start the Beaver Liquor Society.
I think what we need to do is then what we'll do is you and I will, whoever comes, Mike show up, we'll pick him up along the way. We're going to go down to Bakersfield. And we're going to go to Buck Owens Crystal Palace.
Yes.
Meet his son. We'll go down there and have a prime rib dinner on a Friday night. Listen to some real, Southern San Joaquin Valley music, and be right there behind Buck's white Cadillac that's pinned up on the side of the wall, and really introduce you to Bakersfield Sound, man.
Oh, that sounds. You're making this hard.
We'll take my mother-in-law, who probably knew Buck, really nice, really close. I'm not saying that, but she knew Buck, and she knows her son for sure. And we'll have a good night in Bakersfield, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, Kris.
So you can find us at goldenbeaverdistillery.com. You can find our spirits at mashnetworks.co. So if you go to mashnetworks.co, you can order our spirits out of Washington, D.C. if you're not in California. And they'll be shipped to, I think there's 47 states. I apologize if it doesn't come to your state, but we don't control the laws of each state. But I think you can get most states, you can get it through our retailer there on mashnetworks.com. And then if you're in California, of course, we can ship to you currently under the current laws, thanks to the governor's continued extension of the rights to ship direct during COVID, because the assembly and the state Senate can't get their shit together and actually make it a law.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Yeah.
So we're there. We're also currently have a bill in the California State House down in Sacramento to overcome a huge issue. Currently, foreign entities have more rights within the ABC system in California because they can sell imported soju and sochu to beer and wine licensees. That means restaurants and Korean barbecues. But those same licensees cannot buy California made soju or sochu. So we're trying to get that law changed. And so if you are in the state of California, reach out to us and we'll tell you how to write a letter. We could use your letter in the next couple of weeks, because we're about to go before it's called the GO committee, which means that if if we pass that hearing, our bill actually goes to both the Senate and the Assembly's floors and hopefully becomes law. And if the governor's really nice to us, maybe we can do an emergency bill. If not, it'll be a year from now that we'll actually be able to sell this stuff to the same licensees that foreign nationals can sell to currently.
Wow.
Welcome to California.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'll spare any political comment. Mike.
It's still the best state. I'm sitting here outside on my porch in Northern California, first part of April, having this conversation. It's a beautiful state.
Okay. Well, in fairness, last night I was sitting on my patio watching basketball and drinking whiskey.
There you go.
So
there you go.
and
Cheers.
listening to Linda Ronstadt. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
Listening to Linda Ronstadt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, Mike. Where can people find you on social media, and tell us what's going on with My Whiskey Den?
Best place is My Whiskey Den, which is 95% of the time live on Monday nights at 8:00 Central, where we're either tasting or interviewing someone around American craft spirits. And if you want to find out like things, unique grains like using rice or heirloom corns, or is it possible to make a pizza pechuga, that's the place to tune in, because somebody is making it, and it was good. It was really good.
Okay.
We're actually looking at doing goose pechuga.
Oh, that would be good.
That would be a new iteration of Pacific Flyway.
Well, you've got the goose on the label.
That's it. That's it. I'm not sure the American public is ready for a meat fat laden spirit, but hey,
we'll see.
Tamworth makes a deer. They make venison, and they make one with beaver squeezins in one of theirs. Along with your other spirits.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure we can do beaver squeeze.
Moving right along, you can find our show on YouTube. If you're on YouTube right now, you're watching this, and if you've been watching this, then you've been able to see Linda Ronstadt. But you can. This was a lot of fun. Our show's on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Share it with your friends. Tell them that we love Golden Beaver,
Linda Ronstadt,
and Linda Ronstadt. And you can also listen on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Facebook. We've got a page and a group and all kinds of great stuff like that. And on Instagram, if you're following us on Instagram, last night as we're recording this, you would have known that I'm sitting on the patio watching basketball, and very pleasant evening and drinking some whiskey. So hang out with us. This is fun. This is the epitome of what I want us to do here is hang out with friends, talk about the whiskey, talk about music. And if we were all sitting together on Kris's patio, this is exactly what would have happened. And that's the beauty of this. And hopefully in August we'll go out there, we'll pick a few barrels and go listen to some Buck Owens Prodigy or something.
We'll do it.
All right. So Kris, thank you for being with us, man. It's always fun to talk with you. Look forward to the next time, of course. And Mike,
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother, for being on with us. Always
Appreciate
a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And on behalf of Kris and Mike, thank you for watching. And until next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Night.